legal framework for purposes of our analysis and evaluated the evidence as presented by the special counsel in reaching our conclusions.
What Congress wants, at least the Democrats, is to get special counsel Robert Mueller on the Hill within a couple of weeks, May 23rd, and then shortly before that, the Attorney General is also scheduled to testify before the House and Senate bill.
Thank you. Catherine Harris leading our coverage this hour. Yet again, Department of Justice. Thank you. Here's Sandra.
For more, let's bring in Chris Wallace, anchor of Fox News Sunday. Chris, I know you've got a big show coming up this weekend, but first, if I could, you joined us during the breaking news yesterday morning. You've had almost a full day to take this in and digest it. What are your thoughts on everything this morning and the reaction we've seen?
I think the decision, and you just heard that in Catherine's report by William Barr, to make a conclusion on the question of obstruction seems even more troubling and perhaps even more politically charged when you read the report, because when you read the report, it becomes clear that the reason that Robert Mueller didn't make a finding on obstruction wasn't because he didn't feel capable of doing it, but because he thought, in direct contradiction to what Bill Barr said yesterday, that under department guidelines, there could not be an indictment of a sitting president, and he very much left it to Congress to make that decision. So the fact that Barr decided to interpose himself and to make this decision himself, although Congress obviously can go ahead and do what it wants, really seems to go against the grain of what Robert Mueller was suggesting in his own report.
Now there's this question of whether or not a full unredacted report will be released per the request of Jerry Nadler. He has finally issued that subpoena. Congress agreed to it a couple weeks ago. That is out there now. Senator McConnell said this on the redacted report. Here he is.
The only thing that the Gang of Eight, which I'll be a part of, will not be shown is what is prohibited by law from us to be shown. So that's about as open as the AG could possibly be. And the leadership group, this sort of called Gang of Eight, is purely bipartisan.
So it just makes you wonder where this will all go, if that would eventually happen, or if the White House would be for that. We just asked Hogan Gidley. He hadn't spoken to the president on that, but you think that's going to happen?
Well, the president can't decide this. This has to be decided by a court, because the main thing they're talking about here is grand jury testimony. It is, in fact, the case that in the past that attorneys general have gone to the courts and said, gotten a court to agree, a judge to agree to release that information, to give it to Congress to fulfill its constitutional duties. Bill Barr chose not to do that. It now is on Jerry Nadler as the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. This will end up in the courts, and it's going to end up, I suspect, taking months, if not longer, to determine whether or not they're going to release that information. But given the kind of ill will that there seems to exist now between House Democrats and the Attorney General, the idea that they were simply going to sit down and wait and accept whatever Barr decided he was going to redact and not redact, that seems that ship seems to have sailed. I think that they're going to contest this and say, we want to see everything that's in there.
What do you have coming up on the show this weekend, Chris?
Well, we're going to be talking about all of this, and there's plenty to continue to talk about 24 hours after the release of the report. We're going to have the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. He says this is total exoneration. We'll be talking to him live. And then we'll have a live interview with Adam Schiff, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, one of the people who has led the charge against the president on collusion and obstruction. And we'll talk to him about what was determined after this almost 2-year investigation by the special counsel Robert Mueller.
And of course, Adam Schiff has said all along that he has evidence that there was collusion, and Kellyanne Conway is calling on him to resign because he hasn't shown what that evidence was. So that's going to be a fascinating interview, Chris, this weekend.
Yeah, I think we might actually get into that on Fox News Sunday.
All right, we look forward to it, Chris. Thank you.
Bye.
In cooperation with the international community, in accordance with relevant UN Security Council resolutions, we will continue to press North Korea to abandon all of its weapons of mass